Let's do question 4. And question 4 says, Mwea Safari Lodge receives two categories of guests. You have the residents and non-residents. Regardless of which category, each guest has guest ID and guest name. Residents pay room fees, which is a fractional value, per day, and pay a fixed resident municipal fee of $30 per day, while non-residents pay entrance fee, which is a whole number that varies from time to time. So this is hinting at inheritance, where we have residents and non-residents, and regardless of which category, so regardless of whether you're a resident or not, you have these properties, guest ID and guest name. So we are going to have a superclass that has these properties, and then these other classes, one called resident and another called non-resident, which will extend the superclass here. You are required to apply the concept of inheritance okay, to define one superclass and two subclasses. So one superclass to have these properties and two other subclasses, which will be these ones. To enable the lodge determine the amount of money each guest pays for a given number of days. Note that the number of days above must be a property of one of the classes and not a local variable. So we're going to have to use a static variable in one of the classes above, because when they say a property of one of the classes, they mean we must use a static what? Static variable somewhere. Your superclass should have an instance method that takes no arguments and returns nothing but prints on the screen the guest details. So these guest details, the guest ID and guest name. Your subclasses must overload this instance method to print all the details of the guests and the amount to pay. So I won't have to override the method that prints out these details. The superclass should not have a main, and the subclasses must have main methods and must use the scanner class, and also must call the overloaded instance methods in the main classes that they have. Okay. So let's do this with code. We're going to have our superclass. We're going to call it, how should we call it? We have residents and non-residents. Okay, let's call it guest. So guest is our superclass. And guest has two properties. One of them is the guest ID, which is a text, so a string, and guest name, which is also text, so also a string. So we have a string here called guest ID, and we have another string called guest name, like that. Another thing in this superclass is an instance method. Where did I read that? Here. So your superclass should have an instance method that takes no arguments. So let's create an instance method. So public instance method, public void, let's call it print details. It takes no arguments, so here we have nothing, no parameters. Takes no arguments and returns nothing. So our return type here is going to be void, not returning anything, but prints out on the screen the guest details. So we need to print out these guest details on the screen. So we're going to going to print out, let's create some space. I'm going to say guest name is then we say this dot guest name. So this keyword refers to the properties up here. So when you see this guest name, you're referring to this property here. Plus, we're going to have guest ID as this dot guest ID, like that. So that's our instance method that prints out the details of our superclass. So we are printing out the guest details in the superclass. So now it's time to create. They said the superclass should not have a main method, so we should not create a main method inside here. This is not required. So the next step is to create some subclasses, and one of the subclasses is going to be called residence. Residence is a subclass, and to make it a subclass, we must extend the superclass guest, like that. So now this becomes a subclass of guest. Another subclass we have is non-residence, and this also must extend the guest superclass to make it a what? A subclass. Okay, so now some more details here. Residents pay room fees, which is a fractional value. So let's go to residents. Residents here, they have a property called room fees, which is a fractional value. So it's going to be a double because doubles are fractional values. Room fees, and they don't specify room fees per day. Okay, so they don't specify the room fees. So they pay room fees per day and pay a fixed resident municipal fee of $30 per day. So this is going to be called a municipal fee, and it is fixed, and it is $30. So it's going to be an integer, but a fixed integer. So how do you demonstrate fixed integers? You say, because fixed integers are constants, so static final, and it's going to be called municipal fee of what? $30. Or an integer as well, like that. So we have a static and final property. So final, this is how you create constants in Java. So you can as well neglect the static keyword because the final one is a must to make it immutable. So basically, it make it unmodifiable. This cannot be changed later. That's the meaning of fixed. When you want to fix a variable, you use the what? The keyword final. But it is good practice to define constants as static and final, because then this will just make sure there's only one copy of this variable in what? In memory when we use the static keyword. And it will also give us some extra features that come with static variables, where we can just use our class here to be able to access the what? The static field like this. So in a main method somewhere, we can then have this. We can then access the municipal fee just by calling the what? The class name like this, and then using the dot accessor, and we can then have access to this static field, because remember there's only one copy of it in memory, so we can access it like this and not use objects. Okay, so we're going to have to write this method later, the main method. Let's first follow this. Okay, so the residents pay this municipal fee of $30 per day, while the non-residents pay entrance fee, which is a whole number. A whole number is an integer. So let's go to the non-residents. The non-residents here, they pay a whole number, so an int, and we are going to call this entrance fee. And this whole number varies from time to time, so it is not fixed, it varies, it is not final. Just like this was final, this was fixed, so it never changes, but this is not fixed, it's not final, because it's going to vary from time to time, it's going to change. You are required to apply the concept of inheritance to define one superclass and two subclasses, which we've done, to enable the law to determine the amount of money each guest pays for a given number of days. So we need to determine the amount of money each guest pays for a given number of days. Okay. Note that the number of days above must be a property of one of the classes and not a local variable. The number of days above, which days are those? What are the days? Residence payroll fees per day, $30 per day, entrance fee. The number of days above must be a property of one of the classes. I don't get this one, and not a local variable. Where are the number of days? They didn't specify the number of days. Because the only property of a class that I'm seeing is this one here. Because by making it static, we are making it a member of the class, a property of the class. So if this is what they mean, but because I'm not seeing the number of days in this question. Okay, let's just go on. Note that the number of days above must be a property, not a local variable. This is confusing. You're not seeing the number of days. Your superclass should have an instance method that takes no arguments and returns nothing. So we've done this one before. This one takes no arguments. Here takes no arguments, but returns nothing, and then it prints out the details of the what? Of the guests on the screen. Your subclasses must overload this instance method to print all the details of the guest and the amount to pay. So let's go to our subclasses and overload this instance method. So let's start with the residents. Remember, when we inherit from a superclass, in this case guest, we are taking on the properties and the behaviors of that superclass. So in a way, after inheriting from guest, we are also inheriting this method here. So we can have access to it and overload it. So they want us to overload it and print all the details of the guest and the amount to pay. So let's overload this method. Let's create some space. I'm going to overload this method to avoid any errors. We're just going to copy the entire thing like that. Come here, paste it. So overloading is going to is when we change the signature in these two brackets. So they want us to overload it and print all the details of the guest and the amount to pay. Okay. All the details of the guest and the amount to pay. So let's create an integer called amount here, and then in our print statement, I'm going to do this. So we'll break it down a bit like that, and then I'm going to include the amount by saying amount to pay is the amount there, this amount here that will be passed. But then this amount should be derived from these properties up here, because the municipal fee the loan fees are fractional value and pay a fixed resident fee of this per day. So you're going to have to multiply this times this here. So let's do that kind of computation in a what? In a constructor. So we're going to have a constructor called residence. This constructor is not going to take anything. They didn't specify the room fees, so we must we must find a way to input our room fees. I think the room fees will vary depending on whichever amount we want to charge, because here it's not specified in the question what the room fees are. Okay. So let's say this is going to be no, let's not put anything there. Let's leave it as it is, and then we shall say I'm going to have to create an integer here called amount like that. So I make it clear, amount to pay. So I'm going to say this amount to pay is going to be the product of the room fees times the product of the municipal fee, like that. So this is complaining why. Okay, we have a double and we have an integer. So fees is a double. Oh, this dot, this dot. Okay, what required an int provided with double. Okay, so amount to pay is an integer. The room fees are a double, a fraction of value, and we don't want. So we have to make this a double because we don't want to miscalculate and get rid of some fractional values here by making this an int. So we have to make this a double. So we keep the fractions like that. Then municipal fee. What does it say here? Static members access to via instance. Okay. So since this is a static member, you have to access it not using this because this is for instances. So in this case we need to use the resident name, the class name, like this, and then the access modifier like that. Okay, so when we construct this object here, we are going to get the amount to pay by having the product of this of room fees, which at the start is going to be 0 times what? The resident fee. So 0 because by default this is 0. If you don't initialize a double value, it's going to be like this by default 0, 0, 0. So by default this is 0, and when you multiply anything by 0, you must get what? A 0. So this is not how we shall get the amount to pay. So let's create a way to pass these room fees inside our constructor. So let's say this is going to be double room fees, and then we are going to say whatever we pass in here should be. So I'm going to say this room fees here, this dot room fees is going to be whatever we have passed here as what? As room fees. Whatever I pass here as room fees inside here is going to be stored in this dot room fees in this field here. So when we come to doing this computation here to get the amount to pay, it's going to be, it's not going to be this room fees now. Okay, yeah, it's going to be, because whatever is inside here is now this dot room fees. So this dot room fees is no longer going to be what? 0. It will be whatever is in here, which was passed once we were creating the what? The object here. And then this won't be 0 anymore. It will be some value, and that value is going to be multiplied by the fixed fee to give us the amount to what? To pay, which will be here, this amount to pay. It will no longer be 0 as well, because remember, when you don't initialize anything, it's automatically a 0. But when after constructing any object, this amount will have some value. So will the room fees. So in this case, they wanted us to override, to overload this the print details method from the guest. So to overload it, we needed to change the signature here. And so we have changed the signature by including this integer of integer amount. Now the amount we want to print is this one, this one, which is actually a double, so it's not an int. So how are you going to do that? You're going to say the amount to pay is, you're going to access this property here, amount to pay, this dot amount to pay, like that. So that gets rid of what? It makes this unusable, this variable here. So how are we going to overload this now? Okay. We can make it make sense by saying the amount that we pass in there, which is not int, it's going to be double because you have fractional values. So the amount we pass in there is going to be this product. This product we have here, like that. So let's skip this calculation and put it here when you are printing the details. So then we okay. So then we need to access this amount to pay, this property of ours, the amount to pay. Or actually we don't need to access it anymore. We can just get rid of it like this. Get rid of the amount to pay and then just print out the amount as calculated in this statement here. So here it's going to complain and say we need to make this a local variable. Parameter can be converted to a local variable, but when we do, then we get rid of the what? Of the overloading. And yet they wanted us to use overloading. So we can just keep it like that because we need to demonstrate that we overloaded this method. So this is how we can get the amount to pay for the residents. And what is next? Non-residents pay entrance fee, which is a whole number that varies from time to time. Okay. So non-residents pay this entrance fee, which varies from time to time. So we are going to say, we're going to create a constructor as well, public non-residents, and say it is going to be the entrance fee. And then we're going to say this property here, this entrance fee here, this entrance fee is going to be whatever entrance fee we enter here, entrance fee like that. And then we need to create a main method. And in this, before we create the main method, we need to overload the guests, not the guest print details method. This one is in here. So we need to overload it inside this class as well. So we are going to keep the double amount signature, and then the amount here is going to be non-residents pay entrance fee, which is a whole number that varies from time to time. we need to help the lord determine the amount of money each guest is going to pay for a given number of days. So this given number of days is going to be the property in one of these classes. Okay, I see. So let's first, we are going to say what should we put? Number of days. Let's put it in the non-residence field here. We're going to say int number of days is unknown. We don't know, but we are going to know when we do this. This number of days is going to be equal to, let's create an extra parameter here called number of days. So this number of days here is going to be equal to whatever we are going to input as the user while constructing this object here, number of days, like that. Because for the residents, they pay this per day. So since they pay this per day, we're just going to have to enter the room fees that we wish to charge, and then when we multiply the room fees times this, we get the amount the guest pays per day, which is fine. So where is this problem coming from? Okay, yeah. So this amount here for the non-residents is going to be the entrance fee times not this one anymore. It's going to be the entrance fee times the number of days times this dot the number of days, like that. So that's how we shall get the amount for the non-residents. Now, once all this is done, now we need to create a main method and capture these this doesn't make any sense. Number of days, this doesn't make any sense. Here this also here doesn't make any sense, because if we pass the amount, that amount has to be overridden with the value of this. Okay, so let's make it in such a way that we override this using the what? Using the room fees. So I'm going to call this room fees, like that, and then the amount, like it was here before, the amount was a double. So double amount to pay is going to be this dot, this amount to pay is going to be the product of what? Of room fees, which will be the input here. Oh no, it won't. It will be like this, and minus this. It's going to be like that. So this product of room fees and residents. So meaning we don't need, we don't need this extra piece of code. Meaning we also don't need to construct and do this initialization, like that. So then the amount to pay then becomes what? This amount to pay here. This dot amount to pay like that. So we have gotten rid of some code there. So basically what I'm doing is I want, when I start scanning for input, I want the input that the user gives us to be the argument for this what? For this method here. And that input they give us is what we shall use to multiply with the what? With the fixed number here. That input must be a double. So whatever they give us, we multiply with the fixed number to get the what? The amount to pay, which is this. And then we can then later reference this now initialized what? Amount to pay like this in this overloaded print details method. Now this kind of makes sense. So let's do the same with the non-residents. So we need the user to give us the number of days. So we're going to get rid of this. So we want the user to be the one to specify the number of days that we are going to stay in the what? In the hotel, in the lodge. So then this also becomes amount to pay like that, and we are going to make it what? A field up here, amount to pay like that. So this amount to pay here is going to be the product of the entrance fee, which is going to vary depending on what we wish it to be, on what the lodge wishes this entrance fee to be. Okay, and then that time is the number of days, which is going to be the input from the user. How long do you wish to stay? And so we get rid of this in the constructor, and then the amount here we shall refer to this amount. So this dot amount to pay like that. So this entrance fee is going to vary because we, as the lodge guys, when we are creating this object, we are going to input the entrance fee that we want to charge for that particular object, for that particular user, or for that particular non-resident. And then that non-resident will give us the amount of days that they want to stay, which will allow us to do the multiplication here to later print out the what? The receipt, that this is the amount you have to pay based on the amount of days that you've what? Decided to stay. And the entrance fee we've given you is going to be whatever we give them here. But then we shall create maybe multiple objects and then vary the entrance fee, because that is what they mean by the entrance fee can vary. It's not final. So let's start with a main method here. And inside the main method, we are going to capture the input, the user input, and then call this what? This print details method. So let's start by capturing the user input. Scanner is equal to new. Scanner like that. The input string is system.in. And when you use the scanner class, you have to make sure you import the scanner class from the Java util package using this line of code. Now, what do we want to pick from the keyboard? We want to pick the room fees. Yeah, because we used it to overload this method, so we want to pick the room fees. So we are going to say the room fees is a double, so double room fees is going to be equal to whatever we get from the scanner dot next double method, like that. And then let's prompt the lodge owner to enter the room fee for this user, like that. So give us the room fees, and then we shall get that the room fees using this next double method, and then we shall use the we now have to create an object of type residence. So I'm going to say residence resident is equal to new residence, like that. So we have created the object for the residence, and then we are going to use this object to call the print details method. And when we do that, when we call the print details method here it is referring to the print details method in what? In the guest class, but we need to use the overloaded one, this overloaded one here. So to use it, we need to make use of this parameter here, which is going to be our room fees here. So we're going to pass the room fees like that. And by doing this, we are now referring to this method here. And when this method runs, it's going to set the amount to pay, this amount to pay up here. It's going to set it to whatever room fees we input as the lodge owners, whatever room fees we input here, times our fixed fee of $30. So amount to pay is, you're going to put the dollar sign there, because these are dollars, $30. So by running this piece of code, we should get the amount to pay in dollars based on the room fees that we want to charge for this user, for this resident, or let's say resident. Let's run it again. So let's move this to the top right, like that. So it is asking us to enter the room fees for this user. So we want to charge this user maybe $5 for the room. And then when we press enter, it is saying guest name is null, guest ID is null, amount to pay is 150. So it has gotten the amount to pay right, but everything else is null. Why? So yep because we are not picking the guest name. Okay, so let's pick the guest names. Let's extend this and overload it with more parameters. One is going to be the guest name, and the other is going to be the guest ID. So the guest name is a string guest name, like that. And then we have another string called guest ID, like that. And then we are going to have to pick this input from the what? From the keyboard. So it's no longer going to be referring to the guest name using this keyword. It's just going to refer to it like that. So I'm going to pick the guest name from the scanner here, and the guest ID also from the scanner down here. And then we shall have to print the details with the guest name first. Okay, yeah. We need to first create a way to pick the guest name. So I'm going to say enter the guest name, enter the guest name. So after entering the guest name, we need to store that in a string called guest name. And that string is going to be whatever I pick from the keyboard using the next line method, like that. And then we also need to enter the guest ID, enter the guest ID, and we need to pick that ID, which is also going to be a string, guest ID, using the scanner object, and use the next line method to pick the guest ID. Then when we come to printing out here, we're going to print the guest name, print the guest ID, and the room fees. So we've overloaded this method by including some extra parameters, these ones. So when we run this again, we should input the guest name first, then the guest ID, and then charge the guest a fee. So the guest name is John Terry. The ID is guest 001, and the room fee for this resident, let's charge them $15 for the room. So the guest name is John Terry. The guest ID is this, and the amount to pay is this, $450. And this is per day. So $450, amount to pay is $450 per day. The guest ID is, guest name is that. Yeah. So that's it for the residents. Now for the non-residents, we're going to do something similar, and we have to create the main method, and inside the main method we must create a scanner that we're going to use to pick the user inputs, system routine. What we want to pick here, we are going to have to pick the guest name, the guest ID, and the number of days. So we need to overload this method again using the guest name parameter, guest ID, and the number of days. So this ceases to be this dot, it's going to be that, and this is going to be that, like that. The amount to pay is, yeah, whatever we get from this calculation. Okay. So we are going to have to pick, give us the guest name, enter the guest name. So when you enter the guest name, you need to pick that guest name, call it guest name, scanner dot, next line. After entering the guest name, we need to enter the guest ID, enter the guest ID. After entering the guest ID, we need to pick it as store it in a string called guest ID, which will be whatever we get from the next line method. Then after picking the guest ID, next we need to pick the what? The entrance fee we want to charge. Okay, no, we don't need to pick this. This will be entered when we create the non-resident object. So next we need to pick the number of days that the guest is going to what? To stay. So pick enter the number of days the guest will stay. So this number of days are going to be picked using the next int method on the scanner object, which picks integers. So I want to store the number of days, num of days, using the next int, because the days are going to be in integers. And then after doing all that, then we create our non-resident object. Call it non-resident, and this is going to be a new non-resident. And then this is where we are going to enter the what? The entrance fee. So the entrance fee for this guy is going to be $20 like that. And then we are going to use the non-resident object to print the what? The amount to pay. So print the details, and we are going to say we want the guest name, we want the guest ID, and what else? The number of days the guest is going to stay. Okay. So when we run this, our guest name is going to be James Bond. The guest ID is going to be guest 007. The number of days is going to stay for 41 days. So the guest name is James Bond. The guest ID is guest 007, and the amount to pay is $820. Like this. This is per day. We are going to use some commas here to properly format it. So remember when they said that the entrance fee here, which is a whole number, varies from time to time. What they meant is you can now change whatever entrance fee you want to charge for what? For the non-residents here. It's not fixed. So it can be 40, it can be 30, whatever you want to charge. So that's what they mean by it varies. So if you run this again, and the entrance fee has now varied, it's not fixed, and our guest is still James Bond. The guest ID is guest 007. The number of days this time we want to stay for 24 days. So this is how much you're going to pay per day, $960 per day. That's a very expensive lodge. So the guest name is James Bond. The guest ID is 007, and the amount to pay is this amount per day. And that marks the end of the question. This is a very long one. Wow. Okay. Wow. It's a lot of code. It's a lot of code to write for 20 marks. So yeah, basically that's everything you needed to do. Yeah. So let's end this here and do question 5 in another another video.